Laughter rolled across the shattered valley, sharp and metallic. Carried on the hum of alien engines and the crackle of burning stone, Galactic soldiers stood in open formation, armor gleaming, weapons relaxed at their sides, confident enough to mock the humans hiding among the ruins. They had come to Earth expecting surrender, not resistance, and what they found instead looked pitiful to them. Broken vehicles, collapsed towers, crude rifles abandoned in the dirt. To the invaders, the battle was already over. Sergeant Elias Ward lay motionless beneath the remains of a collapsed watchtower, dust clinging to his skin, blood drying on his sleeve. His breathing was slow, measured, learned through years of discipline and loss. Around him were the bodies of his unit, men and women who had laughed that morning, who had spoken about home, who had believed evacuation would come in time. It had not. The sky had burned, the ground had shaken, and the coalition had descended without mercy. Ward did not cry. He had done that earlier, silently, when there was still time for grief. What remained now was focus. In his hands rested a bolt-action sniper rifle, scarred by age and use, its wooden stock worn smooth by generations of human soldiers. It was simple, honest. It did not hum or glow or promise miracles. It only did what it was asked, if the one holding it was steady enough. Below, the coalition advanced with careless confidence. Their commander spoke loudly, his translated voice echoing through the valley as he lectured his troops about human inferiority. He gestured toward the ruins, toward the scattered weapons, toward the dead. Ward listened without anger. He listened the way a craftsman listens to a flawed machine, identifying weaknesses, noting patterns. Through his scope, Ward studied the aliens. Their armor was thick, layered for energy resistance. Their shields tuned to deflect plasma and lasers. Their movements were precise but predictable, trained by doctrine that had not changed in centuries. They had conquered worlds through overwhelming force, not adaptation. That was their mistake. Ward adjusted his rifle, compensating for wind, distance, and gravity. His mind narrowed, shutting out pain and noise, returning to the calm center he had been taught to find. He remembered his instructor's voice from long ago, steady and unyielding, reminding him that a single round could change the course of a moment, sometimes even history. The coalition soldiers laughed again as they moved closer, firing sporadic shots meant to terrify any survivors into fleeing. One alien paused near a fallen human body, nudging it with his boot in casual contempt. Something hardened in Ward's chest. Not rage, but certainty. He exhaled. The rifle cracked, loud and final, tearing through the air with brutal clarity. The alien's helmet collapsed inward and his body dropped before the echo faded. Laughter died instantly. Confusion rippled through the formation as scanners failed to explain what had happened. No energy discharge. No warning. Just death. Ward chambered another round, already shifting his position. He fired again. The coalition commander fell, his speech cut short, his authority ending in silence. Panic replaced arrogance in seconds. Orders overlapped. Shields flared uselessly against a threat they had dismissed. Hidden beneath the ruins, wounded and alone, Elias Ward did not feel powerful. He felt responsible. Every shot was a promise to the dead behind him and the living still hiding across the valley. He would not win the war today. He knew that. But he could change it. Smoke drifted between broken structures as Ward watched the invaders react, their confidence unraveling with every second. He could see it in their movements now. The hesitation, the subtle tightening of formations, the way their weapons lifted with less certainty. These were soldiers trained to dominate, not to doubt. The idea that something old and human had reached through their armor unsettled them more than any explosion. Ward shifted again, ignoring the fire burning in his shoulder. Pain was information, nothing more. He checked his remaining rounds with calm efficiency, aware that each one mattered more than the last. Somewhere beyond the valley, civilians waited in silence, unaware that a fragile line still held between them and annihilation. He pressed his cheek to the stock, grounding himself, and allowed a final thought to surface, quiet but unbreakable. Earth had been underestimated before by storms, by hunger, by history itself. It had endured all of them. Through the scope, Ward chose his next target, and the story of this war took its first irreversible step forward. Humanity began answering the galaxy's laughter with fire. The coalition soldiers broke formation, their polished order collapsing into chaos as unseen death cut through their ranks. Their voices rose in panic, shouting across distorted comms, their confidence unraveling in seconds. What had begun as a show of dominance had turned into a desperate scramble for survival. Each time one soldier raised his head above the ruins, another sharp crack echoed through the valley, and another armored body fell. The air shimmered with confusion, fear, and the raw realization that something primitive had just pierced their illusion of superiority. Elias Ward moved like a shadow through the wreckage, his body aching, his breathing controlled. The rifle felt heavier now, not from its weight but from the gravity of what he was doing. Every shot he took carried purpose. Every second he survived was borrowed time. His mind had quieted to that familiar soldier's calm where instinct replaced thought, and hesitation could mean death. He was not hunting for glory. He was holding the line for those who could know longer fight, and for those still trying to believe that survival was possible. He slid into a new position behind a collapsed transport truck. Through the rifle's scope, he saw the enemy commander rallying troops near a broken statue, gesturing wildly. Ward read the alien's movement, anticipated the moment his visor turned toward the human ruins, and fired. The commander dropped instantly. The soldiers surrounding him hesitated, and in that hesitation Ward shifted again, crawling through rubble and dust. His training screamed in his bones. Never stay still, never become predictable. Above, drones swarmed, their red sensors sweeping through smoke and ash. Ward ducked beneath a steel beam, heart hammering as a drone's scanner passed within inches of his face. Heat signatures were everywhere, burning wreckage, scattered plasma cells, but human bodies were harder to detect in this ruin. The coalition relied on technology. Ward relied on instinct. They were searching for a ghost, and he intended to remain one. He found his next position inside the shell of a shattered building. Through cracks in the wall he could see everything. The alien soldiers regrouping, their armor scorched and dented, their movements less sure. The arrogance that had once filled them had drained away, replaced by uncertainty. Ward's lips tightened into a grim smile. They were learning fear, the one lesson humans had mastered and survived time and again. A faint sound reached his ears, a voice human, strained but alive. Ward froze, adjusting his scope until he found the source. Two survivors pinned behind a piece of fallen masonry, one clutching a pistol, the other bleeding heavily. The coalition was closing in. Ward steadied his aim and took a breath. His rifle cracked and the alien nearest to them fell backward, armor shattered. Another shot. Another alien down. The two survivors looked up in disbelief, realizing someone was watching over them. Ward motioned silently for them to stay low. Their courage reignited something inside him, something dangerously close to hope. The battle intensified. Plasma fire scorched the edges of the building as the coalition finally triangulated his position. Ward rolled away, landing hard on broken glass, pain shooting through his side. He bit down, forced himself to move, dragging his body into the open street. Just as the structure behind him collapsed under concentrated fire, the heat washed over him, searing, blinding. Still, he did not stop. He could not afford to. He reached a crater formed by a plasma blast and threw himself inside. Checking the rifle, 2 rounds left. He whispered to it the way soldiers sometimes do, a quiet promise to see it through. The coalition's sensors began sweeping again, their formation tightening as they surrounded the area. Ward wiped blood from his eyes and studied their movement carefully. They were methodical, disciplined, and afraid. He could use that. He waited until a squad passed close, their armor reflecting orange light from the fires. The lead alien carried a shield generator on his back. Ward aimed, adjusted, and fired. The bullet pierced the generator, releasing a burst of raw energy that engulfed the entire squad. The explosion threw bodies into the air, their screams cut short by the shockwave. The blast rolled through the ruins, echoing off walls, scattering debris like shrapnel. Ward ducked down, ears ringing, chest heaving. When the dust settled, he saw movement to his right, humans emerging from the underground shelters, carrying scavenged weapons, drawn by the chaos he had created. They looked uncertain but determined. One of them raised a rifle toward him, then lowered it, realization dawning. Word was spreading, someone was fighting back. Someone had made the impossible possible. Ward nodded once, signaling for them to move forward. For a moment, humanity surged as one. Shots rang out from rooftops. Makeshift grenades exploded beneath alien machines. The coalition, now fractured and disoriented, began to retreat. The valley trembled under the weight of reversal. Ward's sniper fire became the rhythm of resistance. Every pull of the trigger a heartbeat of defiance. The humans no longer hid. They advanced slowly, purposefully, reclaiming ground inch by inch. Ward crouched low, scanning the chaos. His rifle was nearly empty, his body close to collapse. But his will burned brighter than ever. He had started this alone, and now he wasn't anymore. The enemy had come to teach Earth submission. But what they had taught instead was unity. Fear had forged it. Pain had solidified it. As the last drone exploded above, Ward exhaled deeply, exhaustion washing through him. The sounds of human gunfire echoed in every direction. The impossible had become real. Humanity was fighting back, and for the first time since the invasion began, the balance had shifted. He pressed his back against the crater's edge, closing his eyes briefly. The rifle rested across his knees, its barrel glowing faintly from heat. Around him, smoke twisted into the sky like a signal, a message written in fire and courage. The coalition would regroup, he knew that, and they would come again. But the silence between battles had changed. It now belonged to humans. The valley slowly exhaled as the last echoes of battle faded into crackling fires and distant human voices. Elias Ward pushed himself upright, every muscle protesting, every breath scraping his lungs raw. Smoke drifted low across the ground, carrying the scent of scorched metal and shattered stone. Where arrogance had once marched openly, only retreat remained. The coalition's surviving soldiers withdrew toward their landing zone, moving quickly now, no longer disciplined conquerors but wary survivors. Ward watched them go through the haze, rifle balanced across his knees. His ammunition was gone. His body was close to failure, yet he felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest, not relief, not triumph, but certainty. This moment would matter, not because he had killed, but because he had endured long enough for others to stand. Human fighters moved through the ruins with cautious determination, helping the wounded, securing positions, checking the fallen. Some glanced toward Ward, recognition flickering across soot-streaked faces. They did not cheer. They did not speak. They understood what silence meant here. It was respect. It was acknowledgement. A young resistance fighter approached him, helmet cracked, hands trembling. "They're pulling back," she said quietly, disbelief still clinging to her voice. "They're really leaving." "For now," Ward replied. His voice was rough, scraped raw by smoke and strain. "Don't assume it's over." She nodded, absorbing the weight behind his words, then moved on to relay orders. Ward followed her with his eyes, watching how she straightened as she ran, how fear gave way to purpose. That was the real victory. Above them, coalition dropships lifted into the darkened sky, engines roaring with frustration and disbelief. They carried more than wounded soldiers with them. They carried doubt. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the coalition had been forced to retreat from a world they had deemed insignificant. The idea unsettled them far more than casualties ever could. Ward leaned back against a slab of concrete, finally allowing medics to reach him. Hands pressed bandages to his wounds, voices urged him to stay awake, to focus. He complied, though his gaze drifted skyward, past smoke and fire, toward the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, decisions were being rewritten. Earth was no longer a footnote. As he was lifted onto a stretcher, Ward caught sight of the old rifle being carried beside him, its battered frame darkened by soot and heat. He reached out, resting his fingers briefly on the stock. It had done its job, so had he. Hours later, as dawn crept weakly over the horizon, survivors gathered among the ruins. Fires were extinguished. The dead were laid out with care. Stories spread in hushed voices, growing with every retelling. One sniper, one stand, one moment that had fractured inevitability. Ward listened from the transport, eyes half closed. Knowing legends were never about accuracy. They were about meaning. The coalition fleet regrouped in orbit, commanders arguing in fractured unity. Reports conflicted. Sensors had failed. Doctrine had failed. Humanity had not broken. Worse, it had adapted faster than expected. The conclusion was unavoidable and deeply uncomfortable. Earth was dangerous, not because of its technology, but because of its people. Ward was evacuated to a hidden base as the resistance consolidated control of the region. News filtered in as he recovered, other human cells rising up, inspired by word of the valley. Occupation forces hesitating, alien commanders delaying advances. Fear, once humanity's burden, was spreading outward now. When Ward finally stood again, supported but unbroken, he looked at the gathered fighters preparing defenses, planning not just to survive but to resist. He spoke little. He didn't need to. His presence was enough. They had seen what was possible. Later, alone for a moment, Ward stared at his reflection in a cracked mirror. He did not see a hero. He saw a tired soldier shaped by loss and responsibility. The galaxy would remember this battle as a turning point, but he knew the truth. This was only the beginning. Humanity had announced itself not with conquest but with refusal. Refusal to kneel. Refusal to disappear. Refusal to be erased quietly. As alarms sounded in the distance, warning of future threats, Ward picked up his rifle once more. Feeling its familiar weight ground him. Whatever came next would be harder. The enemy would adapt. The cost would rise. But so would human resolve. The coalition had laughed at human weapons. They would not laugh again. Somewhere between fear and respect, the galaxy had learned a lesson written in blood and courage. And as Elias Ward stepped back into the smoke and light of a wounded world, one truth echoed clearly through the ruins and beyond the stars. Humanity was no longer prey.